Hello, everyone. I'm Dwayne Bonifer in the Lindsey Wilson University Office of Public Relations, and this is The View from the Hill, the podcast of Lindsey Wilson University. Every week during the academic year, The View from the Hill features conversations with some of the people who help create the dynamic living learning environment that serves the educational needs of every Lindsey Wilson student every day. In this second podcast of the 2025-2026 school year, we'll meet local artist and art instructor Dani Ford. She will tell us about how she created Lindsey Wilson's first mural, as well as her journey to become an artist. When Lindsey Wilson University students returned to campus in August, they were greeted by the university's first campus mural. It appears on one of the university's oldest buildings, Phillips Hall. The mural was created and painted by artist Dani Ford of Jamestown, Kentucky. Dani has created about 20 murals in the region, and she also teaches art classes at Lindsey Wilson. The Phillips Hall mural, which is painted in rich and vibrant colors, measures 18 feet by 14 feet, which means it covers about 250 square feet on a wall that faces the L.R. McDonald Administration Building. Appropriately, that is the university's other remaining building from when Lindsey Wilson opened with 3 buildings. The mural features Lindsey Wilson in script with Columbia, Kentucky printed on the bottom with established 1903, the year the school was founded, on the bottom as well. The Lindsey Wilson blue background features magnolia tree flowers and pine cones, which are a tribute to the campus's flora and heritage. Gold elements in the mural are a nod to the university's historic John B. Begley Chapel. You can easily find the mural online if you search for Lindsey Wilson mural. Dani says the inspiration for her first Lindsey Wilson commission came from several sources.
So let's talk about inspiration. I think that inspiration first comes with the most important thing is listening. Almost 80% of this mural came from walking around campus and looking through old yearbooks from the 30s, talking to faculty and staff, students, and I really wanted to see what was important to them. Like, where was Lindsey Wilson and where's it going? It was such a fun process. It was a year-long collaborative involvement with so many brilliant minds, and the students really helped shape what the design looked like.
What kind of impact do you hope this mural has on Lindsey Wilson's campus?
Well, I've heard from multiple people that there were lines on the first day of school to have pictures in front of the mural, and that is a dream. I want this to be something that becomes an identity for any student, alumni, any person that experiences this mural. I want them to take ownership and enjoy it. And it really helps, I think, to create a sense of home, which is what Lindsey Wilson feels like to me.
Now, take us through the process of creating a mural. How does it go from this inspiration, this idea you have, to being something that appears on the wall of Phillips Hall?
It was really a series of a lot of ugly drawings, to be honest. There was so many ugly artwork that I had to work through. I wanted to make sure that this mural was something that was incredibly photogenic. I want to be very conscious about what it looks like in a photo. It's 2025. If it makes the Instagram grid, I feel like that's a success. So we're lucky enough that Lindsey Wilson has the most beautiful color palette, a lot of blues, which I think will help make something photogenic, but you have to be conscious about how those colors interact with each other. I used the dark blue as a background and hand lettered the Lindsey Wilson, because I wanted it to have an Appalachian and really hand-drawn feel to it. Lindsey Wilson feels so warm and inviting, and I wanted to make sure those elements really translated onto the final piece of artwork.
You mentioned it being a collaborative process, receiving a lot of support from the Lindsey Wilson community. You also received a lot of support on this project from those closest to you. This was a true family project for you.
Yeah, absolutely. My family helps me with most of my murals. It's kind of become an accepted thing. And my husband does a lot of the work that requires a lot of muscle. So I guess I could be the passenger princess of mural painting. He carries around the scaffolding and the ladders and the paint. And I just get to focus on the details, which, when you paint in a record heat wave. You definitely need all the energy you can get. My family was there for feedback. They're very honest with me. My 9-year-old would be like, Mom, that doesn't look good. And so, it's important that they're with me because I want to show my kids that it's possible. More importantly, I would have people from students to just random passerbys stop and ask questions. One of them even told me that it inspired them to start something creative again. And that, I think, is the unexpected result of murals. It becomes a community collaboration. And I think that's what's makes murals so impactful.
So mentioned you painted nearly 24 murals. How did you get started in the mural business? Where did that all begin?
Yeah, well, I have to give credit to my mom, actually. My little sister is in college. And when she was born, my mom said, hey, I'll buy you all the supplies if you paint Beatrix Potter in her nursery. And I was thrilled. I was really into art, but I had no clue what I was doing. I think that I went and got a bunch of craft paint and awful brushes, and I borrowed a old school projector. And it was terrifying because it's such a large and intimidating process. But once you actually do it, then I really surprised myself at my capabilities. And that kind of gave me, I guess, what you call just like the bug to do something bigger and bolder. So that's led to a lot of other projects. My largest was a 2,000 square foot mural. And Lindsey Wilson this is actually one of I'm going to be honest, it's one of my favorite designs.
When you drive around the region and you see your murals, whether it's at Lindsey Wilson or in downtown Liberty, Kentucky, what's that like? What's that feeling like?
I can't explain it. I always wanted to do something that had an impact. That means so much to me, to be able to take my talent and something that I care about and use it in a meaningful way. I love that it inspires people. It shows other people that creativity is more than just simply one thing. It can be a multitude of things. And that's what I hope leaves that kind of impact. You're listening to the Lindsey Wilson View from the Hill podcast. I'm Dwayne Bonifer in the Lindsey Wilson University Office of Public Relations. We're visiting with Lindsey Wilson art instructor and artist Dani Ford. Dani is the artist responsible for the striking mural that's painted on a western wall of Phillips Hall. I mentioned earlier that Dani's mural celebrates Lindsey Wilson's heritage. One of the many ways it does that is by including pine cones. Of course, the name of Lindsey Wilson's former yearbook was the Pine Cone, and one of the reasons the yearbook was called the Pine Cone was because the Lindsey Wilson campus sits on land formerly called the Arbor Vitae. It was once the home of early Columbia resident Colonel William Owens. Colonel Owens' land was known for its pine trees, which he was said to have brought to Columbia from his native Virginia. Also, a reminder that your final opportunity to see an excellent production of the very poignant and in spots very funny play Shiloh Rules is Friday, August 29th. The curtain goes up for the final time on the play at 7 o'clock in the evening in VP Henry Auditorium. For more information about Shiloh Rules, check out the news story in the news section of the Lindsey Wilson website. To get there, point your internet browser to lindsey.edu/news. Now let's get back to my conversation with artist Dani Ford. As I mentioned, Dani has painted about 20 murals in the region, so naturally I wanted to know what has been the hardest mural she has been commissioned to paint. Yeah, that's a really easy question. It was actually last summer. It was in Liberty, Kentucky. I painted, it was 2,000 square feet. It was 24 feet tall, horrible surface. And it was just a really monumental task. It was something that I was really excited to do, obviously very intimidated. The hardest part about that mural, actually, right in the middle of it, I lost my grandmother. And it was life-altering for me. She was more like a mom to me. And I really didn't think in the midst of all of that I could continue painting. And, I have to give credit to my husband. He really helped pick me up and carry me through that grief. And I also kind of found solace in the fact that she wouldn't want me to give up. She would want me to continue and make this thing as impactful as I possibly could. And I actually included there was a guitar and some of the elements into that, and there's notes. So I workshopped with my family and I said, hey, what is her favorite song? We arrived on a Conway Twitty And I painted some notes in that guitar as kind of a dedication to her. So it was a way that she lived on, and I was able to really push through that.
Now, you've done small art too, meaning art that isn't 2,000 square feet.
Yeah.
I mean, you had work displayed in Lindsey Wilson's Begley Gallery.
Yeah.
How is it different, or how is it the same when you're working on a piece of art that's going to hang on the wall versus a piece of art that's the wall itself? Is it the same process, or is it totally different?
Not? Absolutely not. It's totally different. I would argue that mural art is really a performative art. There is nothing that I can do to escape that giant wall. It is there. So whenever it's in its ugly phase, which all artwork goes through, it is there. And people get to see that, and they get to judge that. And it's, you really have to have a thick skin as an artist. You have to be very clear about your vision and let that be your North Star, because you could very easily crumble from some of that feedback during the process, because, it's really kind of, you get to see a behind the curtain of what goes into creating. Whenever I'm creating a mural versus a piece, for example, the pieces that hung in the gallery, those are very different. They look very different. And I think that the process for the smaller works of art, whether that's paint or charcoal, whatever, is very personal. I get to create an environment in a studio and come to it whenever, make it a work day. And that gets to be very private for me. And that artwork has a lot of myself put into it. A mural has obviously pieces of me, but it stops being my project when it's finished. It belongs to the community, the space, or the environment that it inhabits. So yeah, I think that there's still two different processes, but I enjoy both of them.
Then I guess too, the fact that the art that you paint, a painting that's going to be displayed on someone's wall, has a very limited audience too. And so it's, as you talked about, a little bit more intimate in terms of who receives it, whereas a mural, as you said, becomes something received by the community as well. So even the people who view it are different too, really.
Yeah, absolutely. And also a mural it has the potential to last 100 years. A piece of charcoal or a painting, it can get damaged along the way if it's not taken care of properly. But it is, yeah, absolutely. It's for two different types of viewers. But I really hope that there's still lies a connection there, that art is meant to be enjoyed, and it can be in different ways.
The thing I think that I find so interesting about murals is that they bring art into everyday life. You walk past a mural artist and you see them creating art. I think back to the term for culture that the ancient Greeks had, paideia, which was you would walk through the streets and you'd hear someone composing a song, or you'd watch them sculpting a piece of art or painting a piece of art. It's almost in some ways a throwback to ancient Greece, when you would see the art being created in everyday life, and people get to see you create art in everyday life. That's, to me, what's encouraging about mural art, is that folks get to see art actually be created.
I love, number one, getting to talk to you, because I always learned a new term. This is no different. And you bring up the cultural aspect and how that gets created. So much of this is what I got to study as a concept in graduate school for arts administration. Arts as belonging, arts as identity, and arts as access. And it really does change the way you experience an area. The mural that I painted here, it used to be pretty kind of desolate, if I'm going to be honest. It was kind of drab, and it was just begging for attention. That's one of the oldest buildings on campus. And, it really took a lot of visionaries on this campus to champion that project. And in turn, we have students that are lined up. There's seating there, there's lights there, and there's life there. And this is really all because of paint. And when you think about that, that's pretty mind-blowing.
That's Lindsey Wilson art instructor and artist Dani Ford. She created Lindsey Wilson's first mural. And to check it out online, you can go to the news section of the Lindsey Wilson website. That address is lindsey.edu/news, and you'll find a story there about Dani's mural. And that's going to do it for this second View from the Hill of the 2025-2026 school year. You can tell us what you like or what you don't like about this podcast by firing off an email to us at news@lindsey.edu. View from the Hill is produced by Shelby Burton. She's Lindsey Wilson's media producer. Be sure to encourage your friends, family members, and neighbors to subscribe to View from the Hill. They can find us on Spotify, Apple Podcast, and on the college's YouTube channel. Until our next edition, I'm Dwayne Bonifer in the Lindsey Wilson Office of Public Relations. Thanks so much for listening. So long, everybody, and have a nice day.